Hello there and welcome back to Janome Stitch Club UK. My name is Julia and I'm one of the UK educators here, and the idea of this monthly video is basically to get you looking at more stitches, feet, techniques, etc. on your sewing machine, and just to help you get the best out of your Janome sewing machines. So this time I thought we'd take a look at an accessory that I was quite excited to get into my sewing room, to be honest, because I've been eyeing this one up for quite some time, and that is the circular attachment. Circles are notoriously hard to draw, let alone to sew around, and it's not that you can't do them, of course you can, but there are certain times when this little baby here, especially with decorative stitches, and I think you all know by now I'm obsessed with decorative stitches, when this really does help all kinds of projects actually. So I just wanted to look at, I'm going to go through the basics of how you put it on and how you use it, and then going to make a little project which I thought might be a good one for Christmas. I will have a brief little run through of other ways you can use it. I will put a link below actually, because Jane Brogan did a video on quilting with decorative stitches with this attachment as well, so I will put that link in there, because obviously there's a lot more than I can fit in just one of these videos. So I'm going to turn you around to the sewing machine and we'll have a little look at how you put this attachment on and get going. So this is the circular attachment, and this is for the Easy Set bobbin models, which is what I've got here on this atelier. It's really important that you make sure that you get the right attachment for your machine. Because they're different, they have to slot in this little bit here, so it depends very much on the shape of your plate and also the little bit that slides off when you put your bobbin in. If in doubt, I would always say give a call to Stockport and they will soon tell you exactly which one will go with your model of your machine. So that's the first thing that we need to do, is remove that, put it somewhere safe. For goodness sake, it's clear. I spend most of my time trying to find that little thing because it is clear and of course you can't see it. In your actual box for your attachment, be wary when taking it out. This little black bit here goes over a really sharp pin. Okay, that's the pivot, so do try and keep that on at all times when you're twiddling about. Also in there will be a screw. I think on one of them you don't get a screw, but so on this one I've got a screw because there's a hole in the plate that I'm going to screw it into. So if I slot that in, can you see it literally just sits in there? When you take it out of that box, and this is the same for quite a lot of these things, this card, don't throw it away, because look, there's instructions inside. Okay, and it kind of talks you through how to do all sorts of different things and machine settings and things like that. So that's really useful, so don't throw that away, definitely. So I popped it in here. I'm going to get my screw out. I'm going to bring you in a little bit, Claire, so that you can see. So one thing that's really important before we actually pop this in is make sure you've got your bobbin in, and make sure that bobbin is full as well. I'm using a bobbin fill on here because I often do when I'm doing applique, so I don't need to change the colour of the bobbin as I'm doing this work, but kind of think about that, because there is a little screw, so you don't necessarily want to be unscrewing it all the time, do you? So anyway, that drops in over the actual bobbin case there, and then this little screw goes in at the side. I'm trying to keep you as close in as possible so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. And then once I've done hand tight, I'm going to go in with my little screwdriver and just tighten that up. Okay, so we're now good to go. So this is going to be the pin that's going to provide the pivot for the circle. So as I say, keep that little black bit on there until you absolutely have to take it off, just to protect yourself. And this here is the slide and then the lock. You just push it up to lock it, to stop it sliding along. And you can get all kinds of different sizes of circles, and that's what I want to show you. And you know, as you're watching, hopefully you're starting to think of all the things that this might actually be useful for. So I'm just going to come back out again. There we go. So what I've got here for this little project, I'm going to make some little coasters. I've got a 6-inch square. This is an old bit of denim. I've actually used the underside of the denim because it's slightly lighter. And in the middle, I've got another square, roughly cut square of yellow, which is going to be my actual lemon slice and my circle. On the underside, I've got stitch and tear interfacing has been ironed on, and I've marked a cross so that I can find the center of my 6-inch square, because that is what's going to sit on here. So I'm just going to slide it under there, and then I can remove that pin, and then under here I can then, let's see if I can get you in closer again. There we go. So I can actually get the center of that onto that pin and then pop the little safety thing back on. Okay, now this is interfaced. This isn't stuck down, because what I want to do is I want to stitch my circle and then trim it away. So I'm not going to use Bonder Web or anything. And this is the most accurate way of getting all your circles to kind of fit once you're using a gadget like this. We're going to stitch this out in the same way as if if we were doing applique on an actual embroidery machine, and we had an actual digital embroidery program. You stitch it out, you then trim it up, and then you actually do the edge stitching, the satin stitch or whatever. So we're going to use that same principle. So I'm going to shift this along until I'm happy with the size. I was using about 5. There are measurements on here. So if you're going to do a project where you're doing lots of things the same, then make sure that you actually use your measurements, or even use a little tiny bit of masking tape or a sticker so that you're going to get the same spot every time. Okay, it does it is pivoting quite happily, and I just want to make sure that it's not too big as we go round, because I've got other things to do on the side. I'm going to make that a wee bit smaller. There we go. And then I'm going to drop my presser foot. I am just on a regular straight stitch here, and I'm going to pop this finger, I'm not pushing down, I'm just holding it in place basically, and this finger I'm just going to make sure that, as I say, because this isn't stuck down, I don't want this to ruck up in front. So you'll find that even without your assistance, this will just pivot round. And that's the real key, I think, is making sure that it has that freedom to pivot. I'll go through doing a slightly larger project in a minute. Now, if you find that when you are starting to get to the end, that it's kind of, you're getting a little pucker or something like that, then just slow down and smooth it out. So again, I'm just going to hold my finger on there, and I'm just going to smooth this bit out, because I don't want to shift it, because what I want is that I want it to actually come back and meet exactly where it started. Okay, so once I've done that circle, I'm going to remove it. So let's cut the thread first, that would help. There we go. And I'm going to take that off, and I'm just going to pop my little catch back on. and then we can go in and trim right up to the edge here of that circle we've just stitched, because this is our basting stitch, I suppose you would call it. So I'm going as close as I can. I don't obviously want to cut into the stitching, so make sure you've got a nice sharp little pair of scissors. Come back out so you can see. So I've now trimmed up that circle. So I now want to do the next part of the process. I'll put my spare teeth in, hang on. So I can go back in, and as I say, I've got that mark there, so I can find, I want to find exactly the same hole. You can put a little bit of masking tape on your fabric as well to protect it if you want to. It's going to depend on the fabric. Be wary, don't use anything too sticky because it might stop it, it might make that pivot pin sticky and then it won't be able to go round. So we're back, this is still in the same place, this is still in the same place. If I drop that presser foot, you'll see that the red line where my stitching is, look, is exactly in the same place. Now I want to do a satin stitch, so I'm going to go into my zigzag and I'm going to take the stitch length, close that right up, so I'm on 0.4, and I'm going to take the width of my zigzag. I'm going to put it, I was on 0 from a previous project, it doesn't usually go quite that far up. I'm going to put it on 4.5. Okay, because what I want, and I'm now going to do a couple of little stitches, I'm going to take it through the process to make sure that it is hitting both sides, which is what you would do anyway if you were doing a zigzag. So I'm going to bring you in again because I want you to see, sorry to keep going in and out, but I think this is really important that you see exactly what's going on so that it's going to hit either side. So I'm on my satin stitch, and I can now do the same thing, just let it pivot gently round. So again, I just keep my finger on there. I find sometimes if I've got a few layers of things, then it's quite useful because that might ease its way up if this bit here is a little bit thicker. So, and then I'm just letting it run round, but just smoothing it out as I go. If it's got interfacing under it, generally it's all good to go. It's when you've got things like wadding or something fluffy that's going to maybe catch on various bits and pieces as you're stitching round. So as we come in to the end again, I'm just going to keep that nice and flat. It's quite mesmerising, isn't it, watching this? You always see people at shows standing in front of the embroidery machines being mesmerised, and there we are, we've crossed over where we've begun. So I'm just going to do my little lock off stitch and cut my thread. So I've now got my perfect circle, which is now perfectly satin stitched as well. So I think you can already see that if you wanted to do a quilt with different colour circles, a scrappy quilt, how nice this would be. You could do different size circles, couldn't you, within each block? How lovely. But we're going to turn this into a slice of lemon. So this is the rind. Now what I want to do as well is I now want to define this line. And again, this is a technique that you'd see on an embroidery machine. So I'm using the triple stitch, Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my needle position because I want to come in really close here. So I'm just moving my needle across, keeping an eye of where it's going. And then I'm going to drop that down, and then I'm just going to use the crank to see, yep, there we go. So I think you can see I'm literally on the edge there, and then start stitching again. And once again, it's just going to go completely around. Now you can do this job without, and I have done lots, because this is a new thing in my sewing room, the circular attachment. I've been thinking about it for quite some time. I've had a play on one in the past. But this, look at this, absolutely perfect. So like I say, you can do this by eye, but especially if you were going to do an awful lot of these. So there we go, look, perfect. So we've got that perfect edge all the way around our circle. So we could move our needle position again and just take it over a couple of millimeters and do a second line on that as well. If we wanted to, we could then go out with lots of different variegated stitches, different decorative stitches, threads, etc, etc. But as I say, this is a coaster. So what I'm now going to do, I'm going to cut that thread, and I'm now going to take that off so that I can move it along so that my foot, and then push it up again so it's in place, so that my foot is now outside of here. So it's going to spin around there, because what I want to do now is lettering. And this is what I love with this, actually. I think that's such a nice thing to do. If you have lettering, so I'm going to go into my lettering, and I'm going to do the biggest block lettering on here, the 9mm for this. So what should we do? Let's say time for gin. Here we go. So time for gin, gap. And once I've got that in, we're ready to go. So off we go. And again, I'm going to keep my finger on here, because with the lettering, it does, like with some of the fancy stitches, it does sort of bounce around a bit because it's going up and down and sideways, etc. So just keep your finger gently on the top there. Don't go too wild with the speed. It's going to like doing the lettering because it's got that nice stitch and tear interfacing, which is its favourite thing. But look, it's just circling around. So we're nearly done. Okay, there we go. So we've done that. I'm just going to cut that thread, and then I'm just going to move it on only about 1/2 inch, and I'm going to go into my decorative stitches, and now I'm going to find the French knot stitch, and then I'm just going to do a few dots. The main reason being, I'm never sure about punctuation, so I'm a big fan of the dot or exclamation mark. They're my default positions. So if you ever receive an email from me, that's what you're going to get. And now you know why. I've given away my secret. Okay. So I'm now just going to finish off. I've marked out, I've drawn a circle and divided it into 6 segments, and I'm just using the triple stitch to just go up. I'm not bothered if this circle isn't quite straight now, because I think that's actually going to look quite nice, and I'm going up to the middle and then down and along, and I'm leaving a little gap in between. So as I come to this next line, I'm going to go up to the center, stop in the middle, and then do one stitch, bearing in mind it's a triple, and then come back down. So there's just only like a millimetre gap between each, but just to make them, you know, look like actual segments. I think you can kind of see what's going on here. You can go much slower. I'm sort of speeding through a little bit here as per usual. Now to finish off, I've put a couple of little Bonder-webbed leaves on here, and again use triple stitch with variegated stitch. And now I've just then done a simple back and bind for these. So I've cut this was a 6-inch square, so I've cut an 8-inch square so that I've got the inch all the way round, and then I can just do that little, it's like an aeroplane fold. Fold it again so that it meets up in this corner. You can use a screwdriver or something. As long as I get it close enough, I'm going to show you in a minute how I then finish this on the machine. So I go round in turn, and then it's always going to be this last one. That's just a wee bit tricky. I'm just folding it under, so you're getting about a 1/2 inch. Now I do the corners first, and then I'm going to go along and twiddle with this middle section. And I do like clips for this rather than pins. So I'm now going to take this to the machine so that I can just top stitch that all the way around. So this is my favourite foot for top stitching. It's actually the G foot, the blind hem foot, and it's one of those that's got a lip to it, because what I like is it sitting in here as it stitches along, because it means you can get much closer to the edge. So I'm going to pop that one on. And I've got my stitches all set up. It's just on a regular straight stitch. You could do one of your fancy stitches or even a blanket stitch if you wanted to. So I'm going to start on a straight bit, because that's always the best place to start. I'm going to drop the presser foot down, and because I'm going to see the underneath, and I think I may have waved one around that I didn't do that, I'm going to bring my bobbin thread up. But before I do that, the key with this foot is actually getting your needle in exactly the right place. So at the moment it's too far over, it's going to miss the green. So I'm going to move it all the way across until I get in the sweet spot. So if I just drop it down, I'm literally about 1 millimetre, 2 millimetres. I'm just going to go again. That's better. So I'm going to just do needle down up so I can bring my bobbin thread up to the top. There it is. And then needle down again, and then I can just walk it round. And I'm going to keep my screwdriver handy, because that's what I use for just flattening stuff down as you walk through. So when I get to the corner, I'm using that screwdriver, so because I want it to walk across my mitre, so that when I swivel, my actual foot is going to go back down. Sorry, the camera's so close, I keep knocking it in the right place. If it's not, then I can just lift that needle up and just alter it, and then pop it down. 9 times out of 10 you get it in the right place. So there we go, all done. Can go in and trim the starting point there. So that's my little set of coasters done, ready to go with somebody's present for Christmas. Bring you out to the front now. So there you have it. Lots of ideas, I hope, coming into your mind about how to use this little baby. As I said, I have done a little set of these coasters ready for a Christmas present. I've also started looking at some specifically Christmas ones where, look, I've fussy cut some scraps of fabric that I've got around so that I can start working on some specific Christmas stuff. Also, and here we have a little badge, so if you've got a jacket or a sweatshirt or something that you wanted to put a little something on, I've just put that completely onto felt so that you can then stitch it onto something, maybe patch a pair of jeans or a jacket or something. And I've only just started. This is a bit of a prototype of thinking, well, how can I do this for Christmas decorations as well? So that's my brain already going into overdrive, and I hope yours is as well. Usual things, any questions, queries, etc., pop them in the comments below. And if you want to give me a little thumbs up, if this is the thing, if you're enjoying what we're doing and it's helpful, that would be absolutely brilliant. And if you haven't already, why don't you subscribe at Janome UK on YouTube so that you'll get notifications every time we pop a new video onto the channel, because there's lots and lots of information on there to get you going on your machines. So lovely to have you with me, and I will see you next month.